welcome back. I'm going to work on these transitions, so by the time we get to chapter 2, hopefully they will not be nearly as awkward, because it's a work in progress. But look, it's my face in the videos. At least you know it's me and not some random person making these for you. Anyway, it is me, Mrs. Richard, back with chapter 1.3, which is our domains and kingdom section of this chapter. So, let's get right to it. Domains, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. What? Poor little domain. It almost always gets left out of our march. We start with it, but why is it that domain was not always a part of the order of taxonomy? Well, little story for you. Carl Linnaeus was a very smart guy, and he came up with the levels of classification, but he didn't know everything. We still don't know everything. As we go through this whole process of science, we discover new things all the time. So Carl Linnaeus didn't realize that things had as much in common as they actually do. So, after he had already established binomial nomenclature, which, by the way, was one of the two major contributions by Carl Linnaeus, and after he had created the levels of taxonomy, he started to realize, things have similar molecular structures, and they have more things in common. Oh my gosh, we discovered the atom, and we had so many things in common as far as chemicals of life go, that it was like, we should probably come up with another classification level, which happens a lot. Like if perhaps you had a lab, and you discovered a blue or a red jelly bean with blue stripes. You have to create a new taxonomical level. Just saying, just throwing it out there. Anyway, so the domain he created, or the level he created, was domain. And he broke that into 3 different domains. He broke it into bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. The 3 domains are bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. Which one do you belong to? You. Like you. Bacteria, archaea, or eukarya. Things are based or placed into their domains and their kingdoms based on 3 real criteria. Their cell type, so whether they are multicellular or unicellular, and then also things like their ability to make food. 2 main ways. Remember, we had autotrophs, which were the self-feedings, and heterotrophs, which ran out to McDonald's. No, not really. But they went out and got their food from a variety of sources. It also depends on the number of cells in their bodies. So, cell type, ability to make food, and number of cells in their body. And we haven't really talked a lot about cell type. I kind of jumped the gun there. We talked about numbers of cells, but we're going to talk about cell type here in 1 minute. Okay, less than a minute. That was like 10 seconds. But anyway, bacteria is the first domain we're going to talk about. Bacteria can be found everywhere. But it's okay. Do not stress. We have ways to get around the bacteria domain. Anyway, bacteria are going to be autotrophic or heterotrophic. So some make their own food, like cyanobacteria, and some are going to get their food from you and other sources. They can serve a variety of functions. Some bacteria are really good for us, like the bacteria that help to clean out our gut. But all of the bacteria that live on planet Earth have one thing in common. They're all going to be prokaryotes. It just sounds positive. Prokaryotes. And prokaryotes are those cells that lack a nucleus. They're unicellular organism, and they don't have that central piece that sometimes we call the brain of the cell. Without the nucleus, they could be in some trouble. But it's okay. Don't worry about our bacteria friends, because they actually do have nucleic acid. If you remember from one of the earlier videos, I had mentioned that nucleic acid, most common one in our bodies, is deoxyribonucleic acid, which for short is DNA. So it's kind of special that bacteria can eat or make their own food. It's also special that they don't have a nucleus. Other fun facts about bacteria, in case you were curious. We have millions of bacteria crawling all over our skin, in our nose, in our mouth, and in our gut. Up to 500 different species can be found in your mouth, and an average of 25 live in your mouth, depending on how often you brush. A milliliter of your saliva, so that's kind of like one little tiny bit of spit, can contain as many as 40 million bacterial cells. So those of you on the basketball team and those of you who just came off the football team, think twice before the waterfall effect. I'm just saying, I wouldn't do it. It's your life, your mouth, and this is coming from a one with a gum globe, so take it as you will. We also have nearly 108 different bacteria cells present in our colon. It's important, and as we've talked about before, we discussed the yogurt issue. Yogurt is very much alive. Live and active cultures on the back of the container. We'll move forward. These are just a couple pictures of different bacteria. This one is strep throat. So it's probably the one that we're most familiar with. Strep throat likes to colonize there in the back of your throat. And then once it's colonized, you can see it. Oh. Moving on to happier notes, the kingdom of Archaea. Archaea like to live in extreme conditions, so like hot thermal vents on the ocean floor, cow stomachs, which are one of the most violent spots on Earth, as they churn and digest all of that grass and hay and miscellaneous that cows eat. So the cool thing that differentiates Archaea from bacteria is that Archaea have a different chemical and structural makeup. Other than that, they're unicellular prokaryotes, which is kind of redundant because prokaryotes are unicellular organisms that lack a nucleus, but anyway. But they make up their own domain based on where they live, their structural makeup, and their chemical makeup. So the big differences between domain, Archaea, and bacteria, where they live, structural, and chemical makeup. And then last but not least, we have my favorite domain, which is Eukarya. Eukarya is the domain where things contain a nucleus. And then we break it into 4 kingdoms. Kingdoms? Did somebody say kingdoms? Yes, I did. But not that kind of kingdom. So the 4 kingdoms of Eukarya, which remember are the ones that contain a nucleus, are protists, plants, animals, and fungi. Let's talk about the protists first, because they're kind of the coolest. A protist can be heterotrophic, it can be autotrophic, it can be unicellular, it can be multicellular. The only thing that all the protists have in common is that they're all eukaryotes, which means what? It means they all have a nucleus. So because protists can look different ways, and they can smell different ways, and they can move different ways, and they can eat different ways, we label them also the odds and end kingdom. Because basically if it's not a plant, and it's not an animal, and it's not a mushroom or a fungus, it's going to be a protist. So notice on the bottom I have a couple different pictures. We have something that has like a little tail, which we'll learn about in the next section. We have one that looks like a snowflake. We have this one with like 8 different little legs coming off of it. Protists look weird. They're all unicellular, and every other kingdom, for the most part in domain, is a multicellular. So anyway, it makes them a little bit unique and a little bit cool to study about. Moving on to another kingdom, let's talk about the kingdom of fungi. A mushroom. Stop me if you've heard me. Oh wait, you can't because you're watching the video. A mushroom walks into a restaurant and the maitre d' says, "No, no, no, we do not serve your kind here." And the mushroom says, "Why not? I'm a fungi." No? Anyway, fungi are a kingdom of Eukarya, one of the 4. They are heterotrophic in nature. Of course, they're eukaryotic because we're in the domain of Eukarya. And their special thing is that they only break down dead or decaying organisms. They're also considered decomposers. So basically, a mushroom is going to spore or release its form of reproduction, and they're going to land on something that they think is a tasty treat, like roadkill, or grass clippings, or something that's dead. And then you're going to grow a mushroom. That's the domain of Eukarya, kingdom fungi. Then we have the kingdom of plants. Plants are all autotrophic, so every plant is going to make their own foods. Even the Venus flytraps, they use flies and insects to help add nutrients, but they all make their own food. And then we have animals, which are heterotrophic, so we like a variety of foods. We like to go out and get our own food. But we do eat things that are dead. It sounds morbid, it sounds disgusting, but we do not go up to an apple tree and go nom 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 on an apple. Wait till the apple's picked or falls off. Same thing with our animals of choice. We do not run up to a cow and go, hey cow. We eat it after it's dead. And on that note, there's an apply it in that section that we didn't get to. And if you're bored tonight, after all of this time studying, feel free to attempt it. Have a good night. We'll see you later.